join. We are glad that you are here with us today. Thank you for joining us. All right, I think most people are in, and I am probably seconds away from noon, so I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. That you are with the Garden Hour with MU Extension, and my name is Gwen Funk, and I'm a field specialist in horticulture, and I am in Northwest Missouri in Holt County, up along the Missouri River Bluffs area. So, I'm sure everyone is coming to us from a different part of the state, which I think is really kind of cool with this program. So we get to learn a lot about different things here. So let's go ahead and just show you our regional map. This is all of the MU Extension field specialists that we have in the state. And you can see where we have different regions and different folks that are assigned to different areas around the state. We are here to kind of help you with any of your horticulture issues that you might have, some advice, maybe help diagnose some problems, that sort of thing. Feel free to reach out to any of the names that you see there or find the one that is closest to your location, and we will be happy to help you. Also, I wanted to make you aware that there are many ways that you can watch the Garden Hour. We are on YouTube at youtube.com with MUIPM. You can watch past episodes, and then we also have some snippets on there from past episodes that you can go back and watch, maybe just to kind of refresh your memory or just clarify some things that questions that you might have. And I think with that, let me see here. Yeah, we'll just kind of stop at that point and I'll just do the rest later. With that, I think we will go ahead and get started with our weather report from Zack. Zack is unable to join us today, but he did provide a video for us, so we will watch that.
Hello, everyone. I think we can get started today by just talking about a week of wild weather, another week to cap off what's been a pretty wild spring weather-wise here, too. So this is our previous 7-day precipitation according to radar estimated rainfall, and definitely an active week, as you can see by all the colors on this map. But I do want to note that at this time last week, we were predicting 2 to 3 inches of rainfall for all of Missouri. And I think the models were right on with where the highest totals could wind up as far as the amounts. And so we do see yellows on this map, anywhere that's yellows greater than 2 inches, some higher totals embedded in there as well. But then also, it really shows how streaky or variable the precipitation is too, because where you see these light greens, that's only a half inch to an inch of rain. And while that's fine, it's actually a little bit drier than average for this time of year for weekly totals in some spots. So an active week, but not necessarily a rainy week for everyone, but still definitely were some higher rain totals, up to 5 or 6 inches in a few spots as well. But the bigger story, I think, over the past week has been the storms and their impact with severe weather. So not all of the storms produced a lot of heavy rainfall, but we had several rounds of severe weather, several tornadoes, as well as hail reports and wind reports over the past week. And so if it feels like it's been a really active severe weather season, it has. On the left is our calendar year-to-date severe storm reports map for Missouri. And so you can see anywhere there's red triangles, there's been reported tornadoes. Those blue squares are going to be damaging wind reports. And then we see the green circles, which are hail reports. And a lot of Missouri has seen several of these different types of events. And so most notably over the last week, we've had several tornadoes, and the Weather Service is still out doing some surveying. Unfortunately, we had some fatalities, and the most newsworthy was our EF3 tornado that really impacted downtown St. Louis. But this brought our tornado count for the calendar year up to 92 here at the end of May. And that's nearly double our average for the year. And we're really coming up on the record that was set in 2006 for 106 annual tornadoes. So a very, very active severe weather year so far here in Missouri. And just in general, as our climate summary, it's been a pretty interesting year when we look at the pattern we've seen as far as temperatures and precipitation, because we've definitely flipped a little bit since winter, which was dominated by a pretty cold and slightly dry pattern that got us through January and February here. But what we see is in April, we actually continued some of the warmer than average temperatures we saw in March. So not as warm compared to normal in March, but still continued this trend of a slightly warmer spring. But the big story was precipitation in April. Our statewide average precipitation during April of 7.64 inches was nearly double the April average and was our fourth wettest April on record, with the wettest April being 2017. So a pretty impressive April. The statewide number doesn't necessarily tell the whole story, though. It was even wetter if you were down in southern or southeastern Missouri, where their April rainfall totals by climate division are above 10 inches here. And we see a little bit less as we get into central Missouri, and actually northwest Missouri only averaged 3.44 inches. So there was kind of a gradient here in precipitation, with southern Missouri being wetter in April, but all of the state definitely saw some impressive rainfall. So May has not been as wet. I would say we've definitely seen our share of severe weather, especially over the past week, but rainfall looks more closer to average or even dry in some spots. But I think, especially if you're south of I-70, essentially, most of us would take a calmer May precipitation-wise after dealing with all of that water in April. So here we see this map on the right. That's our month-to-date rainfall totals. And for May, we should be seeing between 4 and 5 inches of rainfall. And that would be these dark greens and blues. And we haven't quite got there for a lot of the state. And so still 10 days to go in the month to add some more rainfall. But definitely don't have a lot of places with a surplus of moisture at this point. And we can see that over here in looking at some of these individual sites. A lot of them are dry so far for May, and temperatures are pretty normal. We see that all of them are within 1 degree Fahrenheit of the monthly average, except for Kansas City, which is just 1.8 degrees above average. So a very normal May from a precipitation and a temperature standpoint so far at this point. And then when we look at the U.S. Drought Monitor, this is the update from last Thursday. We do still have these areas of northern Missouri that didn't get in on this excess moisture in April and have been dry really throughout the whole calendar year. So we do see some of this D0 in yellow indicating abnormally dry conditions, also D1 showing some moderate drought. And as you saw on the 7-day precipitation, some higher rainfall totals intersected with these drought areas, especially in northwest Missouri. But that might just kind of chip away at conditions. I would expect to still see some of this D0 and D1 remaining as we see the next update tomorrow from the Drought Monitor. And so looking ahead, I actually think temperatures might be the biggest story of the week ahead, because we're expecting a cooler stretch of weather this week and maybe even into week 2 as well. This graph here just shows over the next 7 days what the models are predicting for Columbia as our temperature forecast. And it's pretty similar to a lot of the state, but I'll just show we're getting into the last week of May here. And on my axis on the left here, the highest temperature goes up to 75 degrees. So we're talking about highs in the high 60s to near 70 for the next week, lows in the 40s to 50s. Pretty cool as we get into the last week of May and early June as well. This looks like the kind of coolest day ahead, so we can look at what it looks like for the whole state. And so these are the forecast low temperatures for Thursday night. We see maybe down to 40 in northeast Missouri, but nearly all of the state seeing lows in the 40s. and then a pretty mild day on Friday with highs in the 60s to lower 70s. So definitely colder than average for this time of year as we're getting into nearly early summer, at least from a meteorological standpoint. Precipitation, I do think, at least for the next couple days, will be pretty calm. I did want to mention these are some rain chances today for southern and southwestern Missouri, so maybe up to a half inch. Expecting some thunderstorms to pop up along a boundary there, but nothing very significant. Our rain chances really start to return again on Friday in southwest Missouri, but then overtaking the whole state by Saturday. And so here, these maps show our forecast rainfall totals for Friday on the left, but then look at Saturday. All of the state expected to receive at least 3/4 of an inch of rainfall, up to 2 inches across the northern part of the state. And then in Sunday, that bulk of rainfall moves a little bit farther off to southeastern Missouri, but most of us getting more rainfall on Sunday, and then Monday, that rain starts to depart off to the east. And so we put all that together, and this is our forecast rainfall for the next 7 days, and we see another pretty bullish forecast for rainfall. So this would be calling for another 2 to 3 inches for most of Missouri, although I note pretty much the tier of counties along the Iowa border is missing out on this forecasted rainfall. And so it looks like another next wet week ahead. But I will note, this is very similar to what the forecast looked like a week ago. And again, I think the models are struggling to pick up as we're getting into a warmer time of year, more thunderstorm activity. And so you don't see as widespread totals. So I definitely think we'll see 2 to 3 inches of rain in a lot of parts, but maybe not as widespread as the forecast shows here. But then getting ahead into week 2 and that first week of June, according to the Climate Prediction Center, they do expect these cooler than average temperatures to stick around. As far as precipitation, they're leaning a little bit drier for northern Missouri, but not a strong chance there. Closer to normal precipitation to start June from the Climate Prediction Center. But probably of more interest is their seasonal temperature outlook that was released, and seasonal precipitation as well, that was released last week. And so this is a 3-month forecast valid for June, July, and August of this year. On the left, you see a lot of red, and that is all of the lower 48 of the United States painted as having at least some probability of above average temperatures, with notably higher chances off to the western United States. And so I'll note, Missouri's definitely indicated to be warmer here, but these are pretty low probabilities, 40 to 50% here for seeing those higher than average temperatures. Another thing to note is our forecast is really leaning closer to normal, or maybe even on the dry side for northwest Missouri. And in fact, expecting maybe some drought conditions in the northwest United States and northern Great Plains. So something to keep in mind for that seasonal outlook for precipitation is the chance for dry weather there. But otherwise, that's all I've got for this week. Thanks for your attention, and enjoy this cooler weather as we get into June.
Okay, so that looks like a decent forecast for most of Missouri. I know that I'm up here in Northwest Missouri, so I am happy to hear about the rain. We got, with this last little bit that went through, we got about 1.5 inches. So we really still are needing some rain, but I know some of you are like, no, no more rain. So I get it. So we have quite a few different talks today. We're going to be talking about peonies and sweet corn and fruit trees, and then also a little bit about some of the All-American selects that a few of us are working with. And to start off our talk, we are going to be listening to Dr. David Trinklein, who is going to talk to us about peonies. And yes, they are beloved. I agree. David, if you're ready to go, take it away. And I think you're still muted there. Yeah. Dr. Trinklein, you are still muted.
Okay, let me
There
quickly
we go.
say again, thank you for the opportunity to visit with the garden, our audience. We are at the tail end, but still in the peony bloom period, and they are a sight to behold, and certainly one of the more uh, ornate, lavish, whatever adjective you want to give it, garden flowers that we have at our disposal. Uh, just a brief word about how cherished peonies are. I can't pronounce this person's name, but in her mind, very few things can compete with the perfection and fragrance of the peony. Rose might be the only flower that is more appreciated. And indeed, there was a painting by Van Gogh called Roses and Peonies, which I think sold for $117 million that got the best of both worlds. A bit about their history. They are native to East and Central Asia. It's amazing as you study the name of flowers and taxonomy, the number of names that are associated with Greek mythology. Uh, Asclepius, for instance, Iris, Narcissus, all of these derive their name from Greek mythology. Well, peon, as you see in the picture, he looks a little bit tightly wrapped. Might want to loosen up there a bit, but whatever the case might be, he was a Greek student, mythology student of Asclepius. The gods kept a small g of medicine and healing. Well, it seems like Asclepius became jealous of Peon, and in order to save him, the head mythical god, Zeus, turned him into a plant. And that plant, as we know today, is our peony. If you've ever worked with peonies by digging them or dividing the root, you know that the root has a very distinctive aroma, not unlike that of horseradish. And ancients used peony both as a food source and as flavoring for other things that they were cooking. Additionally, peony has a very long history of medicinal use. As we mentioned before, it has served as an inspiration to many different artists because of the lavish, intricate nature of their bloom. It's a fairly late comer to the USA, introduced in the early 1800s. Today, the American Peony Society recognizes over 7,000 named cultivars of peonies. Peony now belongs to its own family. It has been reclassified over the last couple of decades. It's the Peonaceae family, which contains about 40 species. The garden peony that we grow and cherish is Peony lactiflora. Lac means milk, flora, flower. So it essentially is saying it's a peony with a milk white flower. Mention that the roots are very fleshy, making them very long-lived in the garden. I know of peony plantings and have witnessed them a number of times that are over a century old and still flourishing. So that's somewhat indicative here of what I will call an heirloom plant, a heritage plant, an estate plant that lasts for a long, long time. Talk a bit about the flower forms of peony. These golden structures in the middle here are the stamens. And in the case of the single stamen, by the way, as you probably know, bear pollen that then pollinates the style, stigma style ovary, the pistil. Single flower have fertile stamens, pollen-bearing stamens. One or two rows of petals as we progress through these flower types, we'll see that the stamens will morph into what are called staminoids, then into petaloids, and then into full petals. This is the Japanese flower. You can see that the stamens are a little bit heavy and have started to morph into this staminoid. This is the anemone. You see the progression here, that it is now a structure that is there for its attractiveness as opposed to its reproductive ability. This is a bomb type of peony, and you can see that the staminoids have developed into these petaloids. Now, lest you fear you're going to be whatever by the authorities for planting a bomb flower peony, this has nothing to do with an explosive device. This is named after a French dessert called Bombay glacé, which looks very yummy, frozen, made of ice cream and so forth, but you get the domed shape that bomb flower type takes its name from. We have then the semi-double flower, and lastly, the fully double flower. Most of the peonies that we see in commerce are either the bomb type or the fully double. And these would have been decades and decades ago in development. The stamens, they are now developed into full petals. Well, a bit about establishing peonies. Peonies are very winter hardy. They thrive as far north as Zone 3, which is getting way up there in Minnesota, and as south through Zone 8, which is northern Arkansas. They don't like especially hot weather. Select a location that receives at least 6 hours of sun. As you do this, if there are trees around, the peonies are going to be there for a long time and the trees are going to enlarge. And make sure that in years to come that the trees will not shade the peonies. Peonies prefer a very well-drained, fertile soil. If we're establishing them from dormant, bare roots, which you still can order or perhaps get from your neighbor who is dividing theirs. Now, by the way, is not the time to establish peonies. Unless they come in a container, the time to establish peonies from bare roots is around Labor Day. Well, we dig that hole, we backfill it with an improved soil, enriching it in perhaps compost, organic matter, and so forth. And then we dig down and plant the dormant roots so that the growing points, also known as eyes, are about 2 inches below the surface of the soil after they're watered in. Failure for peonies to bloom is usually due to either not enough sun or they have been planted too deeply. If you can find container-grown plants, this is the time that we see them perhaps in yard and garden centers or so forth, then plant so that the growing medium of the container is level with the soil surface after we have planted and watered. Hopefully the person who forced the peony acknowledged the fact that it should be 2 inches below the surface of the growing medium. Peonies have large, rather floppy leaves. We water them thoroughly. Mulching is an excellent idea, not only to conserve water, but to deter weeds. And as that mulch breaks down, it will release some nutrients for the peony to the root system. If we fertilize peonies, and there are opinions about how and when to do this. And some people will tell you that if you have fertile soil to begin with, you may not want to fertilize peonies. because excess fertilizer, especially nitrogen, will lead to lush vegetative growth and poor flowering. But if we want to fertilize, then we do so either just as they emerge in the spring, that's when the soil is starting to warm, or just after flowering. Some people, I understand, will cut the amount of fertilizer, which should be a low nitrogen like 5-10-5 or something, in half, and fertilize as they emerge and then just after flowering again. Foliage after a hard freeze is not going to help enlarge that root system anymore, so we cut it back for both appearance and sanitation, meaning if there are any diseases on the foliage, we remove that from the landscape. I'm going to say just a little bit about tree peonies. They belong to a different species, Safruticosa. They're really not trees. They do, though, have woody stems, unlike the regular garden peony, which has an herbaceous stem. But we have some very interesting flower forms that we find in tree peonies that you don't find in herbaceous peonies. Now, for decades and decades, hobbyists, plant breeders, whoever have been were trying, I should say, to cross the herbaceous garden peony with the tree peony. In 1968, a Dr. Ito from Japan was successful in doing that. And hence, if you see in commerce Ito peonies honoring his work, they bear his name, then you have a hybrid between the herbaceous garden and the tree peony. The Ito peonies allow us to find yellow flowers and a lot of other very exquisite flowers in a form that is a bit more prim and proper and looks more like the garden peony. I show you here Bartzella, which is probably the #1 yellow flowered. That's a close-up on the right. But the Ito peonies were quite an advancement in peony development, technology, research, whatever you want to call it. They are a bit pricey, but on the other hand, peonies often outlive their caregivers. I want to say a thing to her about buds and ants on buds and their perceived need by some people that without ants the buds won't open. This is an urban legend. Peony buds exude a honeydew, and ants are there to feed off of that honeydew. Now, I don't know if the ants are intelligent enough to know that they're also scaring off other insects like aphids. So this is a form of what we call mutualism. The peony supplies the food for ants. The ants are like the guard dogs, keeping away other insect pests. Very interesting symbiotic relationship. In closing, we often think new is best, new is better. I show you here one of the most beloved and widely planted white varieties. It's called Festiva Maxima. It has a delightful fragrance. It has that little tinge of red in the center and is a very prolific bloomer. Festa Maxima was introduced to the gardening world in 1853. And over 125 years later, it is still what I consider the standard of excellence against all white-flowered peonies are judged. So new isn't always better. Gwen, that's all I have. Thank you for allowing me the time, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Dr. Trinklein, we did have one question.
Okay,
Any tips for stopping powdery mildew?
good question. Powdery mildew is going to be a problem whenever we have wet foliage. And with powdery mildew, the temperatures can't be too high or can't be too cool, but they're just about right in early June, late May. Planting at least 3 feet apart so that there is airflow will help. There are fungicides, if you want to go to the trouble, that will essentially prevent. The fungicides don't kill, but rather they are preventatives. So you have to apply them before you see disease signs. But in all honesty, powdery mildew is not going to kill peony. It might slow it down a little bit, but on the other hand, here's a situation where I don't know that it's worth treating for powdery mildew because the the disease is just not that detrimental to the plant.
Thank you. Anything else?
I think that's it for the chat.
Okay.
Okay, we'll turn it back over to Gwen.
Thank you. Yeah, I did not know the name of that white one. The white one is the type that was passed down to me from my great grandmother through my grandmother and my mom. So that's kind of cool. Now I know what the name of it is. So thank you for providing that. So it is a true heritage plant for sure. Okay, so next up we have sweet corn, and it almost makes my mouth water a little bit thinking about this. And Dr. Todd Higgins is going to talk to us a little bit about how to take care of sweet corn and how to get a plot established and so forth. So Todd, if you're ready, take it away.
Thank you, Gwen. Good afternoon, everyone. My mouth waters every time I think about sweet corn. It's one of my favorite summer vegetables. So we're going to talk a little bit about it so that you may make decisions on whether or not you want to plant some. Now is a really good time to start planting sweet corn. We recommend that you wait until the soil temperatures in your area are above 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the website I have listed here, you can go to there and find a location close to you that has soil temperature readings taken on a regular basis so that you'll know whether or not your soil is likely above 60 degrees. And I'll tell you right now, every place in the state has soil temperatures above 60 degrees. One reason that it's important to get to 60 degrees or higher for the soil temperature before you plant your sweet corn is a lot of our sweet corn is not treated. And it's not the same as field corn. So when you see farmers going to the field with their planters, and now we see corn coming up that's been in the ground for a few weeks, today's modern hybrids have been selected for their ability to handle cooler soil conditions. And also they are treated with fungicides to prevent them from having some of the diseases that seedlings can have. So they get up out of the ground fast. A lot of your sweet corn doesn't have treatment on it and it's a smaller seed. So we just want to have those soil temperatures at 60 degrees or better to give your corn the best opportunity to succeed. There are many cultivars or varieties of sweet corn. Some of them are open pollinated. The heirloom varieties, most of the heirlooms are open pollinated. There are a few heirlooms that are hybrids, but hybrid corn will tend to hold its sweetness longer than open pollinated. There are different colors of corn. There's straight yellow corn, there's straight white corn, there's Bicolor, you've heard of honey and cream. Um, so we have those types of corns that are out there. And then we have some other designations such as super sweet, sugar enhanced, synergistic. What do those mean? They add traits to the corn, the hybrid corn, to enhance its sugary flavor. And I'm going to show you a MU guide that gives you some guidance on how to plant those types of corns at the end of the presentation. But some of those types of corn, super sweet, sugar enhanced synergistics, need to be isolated from other types in order for them to have those super sweet traits. So, how you manage it depends on the type of variety you select. Well, all corn is actually sweet, so you can pick field corn in the milk stage and it'll be somewhat sweet. It's probably not been bred for sweetness, but when you pick that kind of corn, the old adage that goes, have the water in the pot boiling when you pick it, because it does not stay sweet for long. It'll take that sugar that's in the kernels and convert it to starch much more quickly than our modern hybrids will. The corn you see pictured on the right is called black Mexican sweet corn. It's an older variety. It was actually bred in Massachusetts, so I'm not sure why it's black Mexican, but so it's an heirloom variety. Its sweetness and its color is unique, but its sweetness will be less than the hybrids that you can get today. So a little bit about open pollinated corn. What you see on the right is a picture of Country Gentleman. It is a shoe peg type of corn. You notice the rows are irregular. A lot of the open pollinated varieties of corn, whether they're sweet corn or field corn, have that regularity to their rows. But some heirloom sweet corn varieties that are open pollinated are Luther Hill, Country Gentleman, and Stoll's Evergreen. If you're interested in trying those, I can tell you that Stoll's Evergreen is one. These are very tall corns. They tend to get in excess of 8 feet, sometimes 10 or 12 feet tall, and they can be susceptible to lodging as well as diseases because they don't have those kinds of traits added into them. Now we move on to the hybrid varieties, and there are many, many, many hybrid varieties out there. So what I've done is I've listed a couple of the old hybrid varieties, Golden Bantam and Improved Golden Bantam, and one called Incredible. You can find Golden Bantam and Improved Golden Bantam seed in a lot of your box stores. It's pretty popular still. It's not going to hold its sweetness as long as the hybrids do, but if you're into the old time varieties, those are good ones. And with the new cultivars, there's something new in the corn, sweet corn category released about every single year. There are a number that have been around for many, many years. Bodacious, Ambrosia are two that are come to mind. They've been around for probably 30 plus years, and they're still very good sweet corns. They're not as sweet as some of these new hybrids with these sugar enhanced type traits. So they give you a little bit more flexibility on where you put them in, how you grow them, and maybe mixing them with other varieties in your garden space. Let's talk a little bit about growing it. One thing that's important is that you need to plant your sweet corn in blocks. And those blocks should have at least 4 rows in them. And there's a reason for that, and that's about pollination. So getting the pollen corn is wind pollinated, so therefore we want to make sure that there's plenty of pollen and plenty of plants in a block so that each plant gets pollinated. So if you had one long row of sweet corn, you are unlikely to have really successful pollination and good ear fill because your pollination will not be as good as if you have it in a block. We have different varieties maturity dates, a lot of them in the 60, 70, and 80-day range. So the earlier ones, the 60s and low 70 early maturing varieties, should be planted about 8 inches apart within a row. The later maturing varieties tend to get larger, and we need to give them a little bit more space, 9 to 12 inches per row. We want to space our rows about 30 inches apart. You can go 36 if you like. Some commercial producers are going more narrow than that, 24-inch rows, but they're using varieties of sweet corn that are specifically designed for narrow rows. So for most homeowners, I'll recommend a 30-inch row to a 36-inch row. And depending on soil moisture, plant the seed no more than 2 inches deep, preferably about an inch deep. But make sure that that seed is able to get to moisture relatively quickly. So the seed needs to take on moisture to germinate. So either if you plant more shallowly, irrigate or water after planting to soak that soil down and give that seed a good chance of quick germination and emergence. As always, we recommend that you soil test prior to planting. So we may be a little late for that if you haven't done it, but you don't know what your soil has in it for nutrients if you don't soil test. You will not be told how much nitrogen to put on typically when you get your soil test results. But nitrogen is something that's corn requires quite a bit of to produce a crop. When I get down to looking at it on a 10 by 10 plot of corn, you're using less than about a third of a pound of nitrogen as urea when you plant. But overall, that's a fair amount of nitrogen when we put it on a per acre basis. As you can see, 148 pounds per acre. And then we want to top dress our corn when it reaches about 6 inches high with another 0.2 of a pound of urea for 100 square feet or a 10 by 10 plot. Sweet corn is going to need water, not just to germinate it, but during pollination and kernel fill, it's going to require water. So you need to make sure that the soil, let it dry between waterings, but do not let it dry too much. So you want to make sure that you are routinely providing water if we have a long dry spell. And that way you'll have good pollination and good kernel fill, which should provide you with some good tasting corn. Pests are always a problem with corn. The two biggest insect pests really affect you in the caterpillar type stage. They are the corn earworm and the European corn borer. Dipel, which is an organic pesticide, is effective against both of these pests if you do not want to use other chemicals. Some people will use mineral oil or vegetable oil on the silks to try to prevent them. Whatever you use, if you use a commercial chemical product, be sure to read and follow the label instructions because it is the law. And the other problem we have with corn are fungal diseases. If you can select a resistant cultivar, then that will help you. If you have the opportunity to get treated seed, which typically just works on the seedling itself as the seed germinates and the seed emerges, provides some of those protection against some of those fungi that attack the seed or the seedling. Again, letting the soil warm before planting. Make sure you do crop rotation. So do not plant corn in the same garden space year after year. I recommend that you move it every year to be safe, and do not put any type of grass in that location where you had corn last year, and you're going to think about putting the corn back in there next year. You put in some beans or something like that in that location to break the pest cycle. And here in Missouri, we're seeing a fungal disease that's coming up, pretty significant. It's called tar spot. It will affect sweet corn. It does have it will create some problems, but the nice thing about sweet corn is that we can plant it successionally, and it's a short season crop. So in many cases, the tar spot is not going to have any significant impact on your corn eating yield. So when do we harvest the corn? It's about 20 days after it silks. The ripe ears will have dried silk and the kernels will be milky. And when in doubt, talk to your local raccoon because they will know exactly when your sweet corn is ripe. The reference I've used is MU Guide G6390. It's available online and will provide you some information on how to isolate your sweet corn varieties if you're using some of those sugar enhanced types of corn. This publication is geared mostly towards commercial producers, but there's a lot of good information in there for homeowners. And your horticulturalist would be happy to help you translate this information into information that you can use in your home garden. And with that, I'll ask you for any questions.
Kathy or Traven?
No, yeah, there weren't any questions. Todd?
Okay.
I know those coons, they do know when the sweet corn is ready, and they know about a night before you go out to check, it seems like. So that is a very true slide there that you had. And I see Traven has posted the growing guide there in the chat, so somebody can maybe, if you're interested, you can go and take a look at that. Perfect, thank you. So next we have Katie Kammler. She is coming to us from St. Genevieve, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about fruit tree care. We didn't have a late frost, so all of my blossoms on the peaches and apples did not get whacked before they were ready to go. So that's hoping to have some good fruit this year. So Katie, go ahead if you're ready.
All right. So when the spring freeze does not help us out, this is the time of year that we need to be thinking about thinning. So thinning is important because I really like to have large fruit at harvest. I do not want to have fruit that's the size of a $50. That's just not very good for making an apple pie. It takes a lot more work, and fruit quality isn't as good. So I want a nice size apple. Also, thinning helps prevent biennial bearing or alternate year bearing. So if an apple or any type of fruit tree produces a lot in 1 year, it's going to say, man, I'm tired. I'm taking next year off. I did all my work last year and I need a recovery year. So thinning also helps prevent that biennial bearing. So we have a nice crop of fruit every year. So in these side pictures, you can kind of see we really want on apples and pears. All of my pictures are apples, but we want to thin to 1 fruit per cluster. So this picture on the bottom left really does kind of help show that. So you can see there's one larger apple and then smaller apples. It's not as obvious in some of these other clusters. But that bigger apple is called the king apple. So we want to remove everything but the king apple in order for those to have room to size up and be good. So we do this by hand. Basically, we're just taking those extras off, snapping them off. We leave the stem on the tree, but they should snap off fairly easily. And in a commercial situation, they actually use either a hormone or an insecticide for thinning is how they do it commercially. But in a home situation, doing it by hand is how we go about it. So that's kind of an example of apples and pears. Peaches and nectarines are very similar, except for in peaches in particular, because they are a soft fruit. We really want to make sure that they are spaced apart. We do not want that fruit to be touching, because when we think about something touching each other, it's a good spot for moisture to gather. And if we have moisture gathering there, particularly on a soft fruit like a peach or a nectarine, that is going to be a favorable environment for fruit rots to start. So ideally, we want them spaced 8 to 12 inches apart. However, on peaches and nectarines, so if we do have a spring freeze, it can actually help us out a bit. So only 10% of the flowers need to set fruit for a full crop load. And once again, are thinning when it is small, so 1/2 inch in diameter. Thinning also helps prevent, as you can see at the top, breaking. That crop load was too heavy for those branches and they broke. And depending on where you are in the state too, we've had some pretty severe windstorms. And that also, if there's a crop load on, can lead to branch breaking. So we want to think about that when we're thinning. And there's a little home orchard I drive by every day on my way home from work. And I noticed he's already got some props out underneath some branches because he's concerned about some of these storms and providing some extra support for his crop load. And then just because some interesting things to think about in home fruit production, if you don't have a lot of space, I always get a few questions about this, and I've been seeing quite a bit lately, so I thought I'd share some images that I've taken over the years in different spots. And I'm probably not going to pronounce it correctly, espaliered trees. So this is popular with fruits, training them to be against a fence or a wall. The reality is, because they are flattened like this, they do need extra support. So you're seeing a fence or post behind a lot of these. And but it's a great way to create a living fence or to use apples or fruit trees in small spaces. So it's also another nice way that a lot of times we can get a little bit more airflow to our trees, so we have less disease problems. The bottom picture on the right was taken at Missouri Botanical Gardens, I believe, and you can see even there they have some problems with some fire blight. So they need to work on probably pruning some of that out. The apples look to have been thinned and might need a little bit more thinning. And so all of those examples are apples. But I just recently got back from a trip to Ireland to see some different horticulture there. And we saw a lot more apples espaliered. And even the picture against the brick wall is cherries, and they were actually loaded with cherries. That was kind of an unusual one that I don't normally see. We see apples done this way a lot, but got to view cherries also. So those are some different options. And remember that now is that great time to thin out your fall harvest. So you have good, nice size apples for eating and baking.
Thank you, Katie. That was really cool. Do you have to have a certain kind of cultivar to do that? Espalier. I know I'm not saying it correctly.
Yep. No, you do not. It is all about pruning technique, and that starts when that tree is small, and then we continue that. So it's a little different pruning technique. And honestly, in commercial production now, they are going to really dwarf trees and more on that kind of scale, where they are kind of trellised for production and ease of harvest.
Okay, very nice. Thank you for that information. All right, we next have Jennifer Schutter. She is from the Kirksville area, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about our All-American Selects that we are all kind of trialing. A few of us are trialing around the state just to kind of get an idea of how they are doing. So Jennifer, take it away.
All right, thank you, Gwen. So yes, there are either 4 or 5 of us that are doing All America Selection display gardens across the state. There's actually 9 total, and 4 to 5 of those are MU extension. So Gwen being one that's on today, and some of our other horticulture specialists. I just want to review what we talked a little bit about last month. For those of you that may not have been on last month, I want to tell you a little bit about this organization. So it is the oldest established independent testing organization in North America, and it was established in 1932. It was created as a neutral nonprofit to trial plants in the various regions across our country. And they're trialed in garden settings, and they trial vegetables as well as various ornamental flowers. And then judges across those regions are the ones that will select them for their superior qualities. And they're judged in those regions, and then they have to go through, the trial before they're selected. And then if they meet certain standards, they are considered an All-America selection. There are over 200 display gardens in the United States. And like I said, there are 9 in Missouri, with about 4 or 5, I'm not exactly sure, but it's either 4 or 5 of us out of those 9 are with MU Extension. And in 2025, so in January, we were sent about 38, I counted mine. I have about 38 different species of plants, vegetables and flowers that I'm growing. If you want to learn more about the America Selection Organization and what they do, I would encourage you to go to their website. Up at the top there, you can see the menu, and the arrows are pointing to some of the different categories that you can hit that drop-down menu and look at the different things. But I'm not able to tell you everything about this organization in the short time I have, so I do encourage you to go to this website. I showed this one last month. This is Constance kohlrabi, but I didn't show you the actual fruit because at that time it was only a few inches tall. So I wanted to show you what it looks like now. It is beautiful. It is ready to harvest. My kohlrabi fruits there are several inches wide. They're absolutely gorgeous. And what I really like about this one is that it is pretty much insect resistant. There's hardly any holes at all in the kohlrabi leaves, which is amazing for a cole crop. Most of the time they are eaten up with cabbage looper or cabbage worms, but not Constance. She's doing well. The insects don't like her. All right, moving on to some newer, or some of the ones that we didn't talk about last month. So this would be new for this month now. This is Dianthus Capitan Magnifica. It is, again, a dianthus. It is a dark pink, as you see here in the photos. It is gorgeous. And these photos were taken by Debbie Kelly in Boone County. And the large photo there you see on the right is in a container. So dianthus can be grown in a container, or it can be grown in the garden. This is a dianthus that does tolerate heat more than other dianthus varieties. So that's what is superior about this one. It tolerates heat. It also can be sheared off when the blooms are done, and that will promote more blooms to come on. This dianthus has longer stems. The blooms have longer stems, which make them a good cut flower for those of you that are into cut flowers. So this is a nice dianthus. And I wanted to show you what it looks like here at the Adair County Extension Center. And on the right is my planting. And they're not all in bloom yet. The photos here on the left, those are from Debbie in Columbia, and those, they're so beautiful. But I just want to show you the planting here in Kirksville. Moving on to lettuce. This is Bower lettuce. It is an oak leaf variety, and it is compact. It's about 4 inches wide. I'm sorry, about 4 inches high and 8 inches wide. Planted in April and doing great. This is what it looks like in the garden as well as in containers. So I'm doing some in containers to see what it looks like. It is ready for harvest. It's a beautiful lettuce. Here we have a snapdragon. This is double shot orange bicolor. This one was started on February 14th by seed. And this one is known for its brilliant colors, its branching habit, and it can make a good cut flower. Here you see it in my garden at the Adair County Extension Center. It's doing very well. It's brightly colored. I just love the beautiful orange colors. This one, they call it Sister. This one is yellow red heart snapdragon. And it too is really pretty. It has long-lasting flowers. The flowers smell like a candy. So it is also a good one. This is what it looks like out in my garden. The second photo on the left where it's kind of orangey, that was one Debbie sent me. And to wrap up, this is what I call raspberry shake, or petunia shake raspberry is the name of it. It is a more compact, rounded petunia. It is not a spreading one, but the blooms are spectacular. They look like a mix of raspberry and vanilla ice cream mixed together. That's how it does get its name, shake, so raspberry shake. And this one is just really impressive. And this is what it looks like here at the Adair County Extension Center in a large like container bed. Now, keep in mind, we've had some rain, and it's been, splattered with rain and not quite as showy as that photo right here, but it was until, the temperatures got cooler and we got some rain. So these are some of the ones that I wanted to highlight today. And it's going to be fun watching these throughout the summer and see what they all look like in July and August. And that's a wrap on that. Back to you, Gwen.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, we have, you might check out that website there that Traven put in the chat to look at where the demonstration gardens are in Missouri. And you can kind of see how these different things are looking around the state. Mine are not in the ground yet. I'm a little bit behind on it, but I will hope to have some pictures later on in the season. So let me go ahead and wrap things up. I appreciate your attention today and sticking with us. I just want to remind you that everything is recorded on our live stream or on our YouTube channel. You can also watch us there as a live stream. You can look at the snippets as well. So that's all available for you. And then our next meeting will be June 18th, same time. You can register here at this website to get an email with a link and everything, or you can just join on the YouTube channel, either one. That would be fine. And then if you want to save the chat with some of those links that Traven put in, you just go to the 3 dots that are at the top, and then it will you'll have a drop-down menu, and then just do the save chat. And that should drop it into your, wherever your computer saves the chats in your files there. And then just a reminder of all the horticulture specialists that are around the state, reach out to us with your problems or concerns, or if you just want to share kind of a cool thing that's happening in your garden. We like to hear all of those stories. So with that, I will say adieu and thank you so much for joining us today, and we will talk with you next month. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.